And welcome in, everybody. Vasu Party here with you on the Make the Money and Run podcast for Monday, October 18th, 2021. Welcome in. What a weekend of sports it was. We're going to review the whole weekend. Major League Baseball playoffs, both the LCSs have started. The NFL had a big weekend. The Arizona Cardinals still the only undefeated team through week 6. There were some bye weeks going on, so maybe that messed up with your fantasy football and your point spreads. And we'll also give you the updated standings on how the point spreads are. The underdogs still leading in terms of covering or winning outright. We'll give you those numbers at the end as well, too. Charlie O on vacation, on assignment. He'll be back with us on Thursday. Don't forget, every day we're here by 6 Eastern to give you our selections for each day. Also update you on the latest news. We're sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino, Silicon Valley's longest serving British pub and restaurant, celebrating 40 years of the best British food and drink. BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. Go check them out. They can come to your office for private events, catering as well, or they can set you up for your group events over in Silicon Valley on the border of San Jose and Cupertino. Next time you're in Silicon Valley, check out the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. All right, as I said, we get to you every day by 6 o'clock Eastern with the latest news and notes on all the social media pages. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, as well as any of the Facebook Make the Money and Run podcast group page, as well as its own Facebook page as well, too. So if you missed any of the live broadcasts like we're having now, Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, please feel free to download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. We're here every Monday at 3 Eastern, Thursdays at noon Eastern. Fridays, we start with the baseball show at 9:30 West Coast time, 12:30 Eastern. And then we go to the Friday football show right after that at 10 o'clock Pacific time, 1 o'clock Eastern. Let me acknowledge people on Facebook and YouTube right now. How you doing, Taylor? Taylor on our network at the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Great show that he's got going on every week as well there, too. So thanks very much for being on with us, Taylor. We appreciate it. All right, let's get started with baseball here. How about those games last night and Saturday? The Boston Red Sox, Houston Astros are tied 1 game apiece. Game 3 will be tonight. It'll be Eddie Rodriguez against Jose Urquidy. We'll get the lines to you in a second. But both games have been a lot of offense. We knew that was going to be the case with the offense going on. The Saturday game, it was 2 grand slams by Boston, very unheard of. J.D. Martinez, a first-inning grand slam. Rafael Devers, a second-inning grand slam. They held off a late charge by the Astros. They won 9-5. Nate Eovaldi pitched 5 1/3 innings in that game. Garcia got the loss. He gave up the first 5 runs in that game. He walked 3 guys, struck out 2. But the Red Sox bats are hot right now, and they're going home for 3 games. Kike Hernandez is on fire, hitting well over 500, driving the ball in all over the place. Unbelievable what he's accomplished with the Red Sox in his first year there. He came in to be a second baseman. He wanted more playing time from the Dodgers. Signed as a free agent. The ex-Dodger has made a mark not only at second base and not only on the team defensively, but definitely offensively. And in the outfield, he's been great. He's made catch after catch after catch, including a big catch on Friday night. Friday night, I believe, was the catch he made to save 2 runs. The Astros came back and won that game on Friday. That game was 5-3, 5-4. Hernandez hit the home run in the ninth to make it 5-4. But in that game, it was Stanek, the reliever, that got the win. Hansel Robles took the loss. Ryan Presley picked up the save. It was 2-1 Boston, 3-1 Boston, and then Altuve homered to tie it up. Correa homered. What time is it? Says Carlos Correa. Apparently it's his time. Altuve with the sacrifice fly, and then Kike Hernandez in the 9th inning, his home run as well. So he's on fire. 4 for 5 in game 1 for Kike Hernandez, and I believe he was 5 for 5, somewhere around there. Let's see what we got here in the box score here. Should have the stuff ready for you sometimes. Kike Hernandez, 2 for 4. So 4 for 5 and 6 for 9 with 2 home runs. He's got, how many home runs does he have? He's got 3 home runs in the series. Game 3 tonight in Boston. The line for the game, there we go. Eddie Rodriguez, Jose Urquidy, 110 for Boston, so very close to even odds. Both offenses are clicking right now. It's just a matter of who can pitch. And right now, neither one of them can pitch. Eddie Rodriguez had a tough year for the Boston Red Sox. Jose Urquidy has been injured a little bit. He will come back and start tonight. ALCS Game 3, 110. If you missed our Friday show, the baseball show with John Parado, Baseball Hall of Fame writer and also a beat writer for the Pittsburgh Pirates from sportsbettingdime.com. He's previewing the NLCS. but we just said that the overs in all 7 games may be the way to go. So that might be the way to go tonight. Boston 110, the total 9 in Boston. Don't know what the weather's like. We'll have that updated for you at 6 o'clock Eastern as well. All right, the National League. Holy cow. Dodgers came in after a big Game 5 over the Giants. They came into Atlanta. They get walked off in 2 straight games. Last night, Eddie Rosario, the culprit. If you're a Dodgers fan, 5-4 the final score on Sunday after a 3-2 walk-off on Saturday. The Braves lead 2-0. They have a day off. They're flying out to L.A. Tuesday afternoon will be Game 3. Excuse me for a second here. Travel for me, so that's a little bit of a hacking cough there from the travel. But anyway, Braves up 2-0. Game 3 tomorrow afternoon in Los Angeles, 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock on the West Coast. Walker Buehler goes for the Dodgers. The line 173, 7.5 the total. Charlie Morton, who's no stranger to Dodgers baseball, as Vin Scully used to say, Charlie Morton beat the Dodgers with the Houston Astros in 2017. So going to be very interesting to see how this game pans out. The Dodgers obviously need these games in Los Angeles to make this a series because you don't want to fall down 3-0. There's no doubt about that. That's obvious. Way to go, Vasi. Way to come up with the master of the obvious there. With the Dodgers, Dave Roberts, a lot of questions of his managerial decisions, going with openers. Game 1 with the opener. Max Scherzer, 2 of the last 3 starts. He hasn't made it through the 5th inning. A little different in baseball nowadays, the way the analytics and sabermetrics are taking over. 10 years ago, I can remember the Detroit Tigers. They lost the World Series, but they were in the World Series. They had Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer on the mound in 2012 in 2013. In 13, they lost the LCS to the Red Sox. But in 12, Verlander and Scherzer started for the Tigers. There was no way they were coming out before 7 innings as well. So very interesting how Dave Roberts making the decision. Corey Knebel was the opener in Game 1. Dodgers did not have a lead in Game 1. Yesterday, Chris Taylor gave L.A. a 4-2 lead before the Braves came back with 1 in the 7th, 1 in the 8th. Kenley Jansen gave up the run in the bottom of the 9th. The Braves up 2-0 in the series lead. Brian Snitker pushing all the right buttons right now with the lineup he's got. Dansby Swanson hitting the ball. Austin Riley, MVP candidate this year, has had a good series so far, and he had a great series against the Brewers as well, too, in the divisional series. So right now, the Braves up 2-0. The line 173 tomorrow night for Walker Buehler and Charlie Morton. I know living in the Bay Area, it makes a lot of Giants fans happy because the Dodgers did beat the Giants in 5 games on the Cody Bellinger base hit in the 9th inning on Thursday. They had that night to celebrate. On Friday, they traveled to Atlanta. They looked like they were ready on Saturday, but just couldn't get the bats going. Yesterday, they got off to a 2-0 lead. Corey Seager with a home run, and then the 2-run home run by Jock Peterson, former Dodger Jock Peterson, comes back to haunt the Dodgers and ties it up at 2. Chris Taylor gets the blue double to give the Dodgers a 4-2 lead, and then runs in the 7th and 8th for Atlanta, as we said, and then the Eddie Rosario single up the middle. Corey Seager, a lot of people say he should have got in front of it. I know a lot of people are saying other team shortstops would have. That's a tough play, but you got to get your body in front of it. You got to keep that runner from scoring. So now Dodgers in a precarious position. The only thing that helps them, they go home for 3 days, tomorrow afternoon, Wednesday night, and I believe Thursday night as well, too, as the American League will have the day off that day. Yeah, Thursday night, 8:08 Eastern. On Wednesday, they will also be the night game, as Houston will have the day game in Game 5, which there will be for Houston and Boston. And then Tuesday, as we said, tomorrow, the Dodgers will play 5 o'clock Eastern, 5:08 Eastern, with Walker Buehler and Charlie Morton. The Astros and Red Sox with Rodriguez and Urquidy will go tomorrow evening at 8:08 Eastern. Fox Sports has the American League. TBS has the National League. Let's check out Facebook comments. I'm sure I'm getting some comments right now. Yes, Jennifer, my friend Jennifer. Let's go Dodgers. Down 0-2, Jennifer. I know we were talking yesterday. We weren't worried going into the game, but now down 0-2, I got to admit, I'm a little worried right now being a Dodgers fan. But you know what? I give Atlanta credit. They've gotten the hits when they needed it. They've gotten the play when they needed it. And right now, the thing going good for the Dodgers right now is Walker Buehler's on full rest, and he'll be able to get full rest, and hopefully he'll come out and be able to shut down that lineup. The Braves are red hot. They are hitting the ball. They are not missing any pitches. It looked good for Atlanta. It looked good for the Dodgers early in the game. Julio Urias even came in for an inning yesterday as well. I believe he came in for an inning yesterday as well as I look at the box score here. It was Scherzer, Vesia, Kelly, Trenian, Arias blew the save. Gratterall came in. He took the loss. Jansen gave up the hit. So that's just the way it goes, unfortunately. So down 0-2 for the Dodgers. The Boston-Houston series, with all that offense, I wouldn't be surprised if this thing goes 7 games for Boston and Houston. Houston may sneak out at the end, but don't count those Boston bats out right now because Boston hitting the ball hard. J.D. Martinez back. He may not be completely healthy, but J.D. Martinez is hitting the snot out of the ball. Rafael Devers with the grand slam just inside the right field foul pole 2 days ago for the second grand slam of the game. And now they go home for 3 days. They've got tonight, 8 o'clock is the game tonight. It's going to go opposite the football game. We'll talk about Buffalo and Tennessee in a little bit, but Houston, Boston tonight with Rodriguez and Urquidy going 1-1. The series is tied. Urquidy, right-handed pitcher, and Rodriguez, the left-handed pitcher. Yordan Alvarez having a good year for them. Gurriel, and then Alvarez led the team in RBIs. Devers, Bogarts, and Devers again. But Kike Hernandez right now, the hot commodity for the Boston Red Sox. So what do you think in these two series? Send us your comments on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, anywhere you get us. If you missed the live show again, you can always catch us on the podcast minute every day at 6 Eastern on our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anywhere that you can catch us to Make Money and Run, a Facebook group page, also the podcast page that we have ourselves. And we're on 3 times a week with the Make the Money and Run podcast every Monday right now at 3 Eastern, Thursdays at noon Eastern, Fridays at 12:30 Eastern, and then the football show follows right after that at 1 o'clock Eastern on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter Live. Download and subscribe. If you miss any of the live broadcast, please feel free to pass this along to everybody. We're sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino, Silicon Valley's longest-serving British pub and restaurant, celebrating 40 years of the best food and drink. BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. One programming note for tomorrow, a conversation with Vasu Vadaparty, my former coach, Terry Harkey, professional baseball scout for the Houston Astros. He'll be on with us at 2 o'clock Eastern tomorrow, 11 o'clock on the West Coast for a half-hour conversation. What does the old coach think of? What does the old coach think of baseball nowadays with sabermetrics and analytics running the world? And those of you that watch the movie, Trouble with the Curve with Clint Eastwood, Amy Adams, and Justin Timberlake. The scouting part of it, the baseball part of it was pretty accurate. There were a lot of subplots in that story, but the scouting part of it is very true. We'll get Terry Harkey's takes on the scouting part of it as well. All right, we got a lot of NFL to talk about. We got a lot of NCAA basketball. Hey, did you notice the NBA starts tomorrow as well, too? And we're 1 week into the National Hockey League season. The Monday version of the Make the Money and Run podcast comes to you as a review of the entire weekend, as well as a preview of what comes up. I'm your host, Vasu Vadaparty. Charlie O on assignment. He'll be back with us on Thursday. In 30 seconds, when we come back, we're going to hit the NFL games over the weekend. The Arizona Cardinals are still undefeated, and the Buffalo Bills may still be better. They play tonight against Tennessee. We'll go through all the NFL, NCAA action from the weekend. We'll preview Monday Night Football, and we'll give you a preview of what comes up during the week with the NBA and the NHL, as well as the ALCS and the NLCS as well. And don't forget, at 6 o'clock Eastern, we'll have our podcast minute on all the social media platforms where we have our selections for the day. It'll be Selection Monday. One more Facebook comment before we go. John Bernstein. Hey, John, how are you? Nice to see you, John. Thanks for coming on with us, and thanks for watching as well, too. Let me give Jen another shout out here. Let's go Dodgers. We know she's a Dodgers fan. I, too, am a Dodgers fan. I'm worried, Jen, but not yet. 3 games at home. Johnny, thanks for watching as well, too. We'll see you soon as well. Thanks for joining us. Pass it along to everybody as well of the podcast. If you miss any of the live ones, you can always download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeart, SoundCloud. Anywhere you see the Make the Money and Run symbol up there in the corner is where you can subscribe and find our page as well, too. So thanks to everybody watching Facebook and YouTube and Twitter live right now. All right, when we come back in 30 seconds, the NFL Outlook, we'll talk about NCAA basketball. We'll preview the NBA and the NHL week upcoming. I'm Vasu Vadaparty. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast for Monday, October 18th, 2021. Back in 30. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast. We're here every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I'm your host, Vasi Vadaparty. Solo act today. Charlie O on the road on assignment. He'll be back with us on Thursday as well. If you miss any of our shows, you can always download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. Apple, Google, iHeart, Spotify, SoundCloud. Don't forget, every day during the week, we have our picks, our selection picks for the day. By 6 o'clock Eastern, Monday through Friday. On Saturdays, we're there 3 times a day, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern, 8 o'clock on the West Coast when we start. And we do it for each segment of college football every Saturday. And then on Sundays, we start at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. for both sets of the NFL games, but also with baseball playoffs, the NBA and the NHL also coming up on board. So we'll have selections for you every day, 7 days a week. We try not to miss any days. Or if we don't have any, then we just go from there as well. We're sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Check them out. Silicon Valley's longest-serving British pub and restaurant, celebrating 40 years of the best food and drink. BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. All right, we just got done with the baseball segment. Boston and Houston will go tonight. Game 3 of the ALCS. Eddie Rodriguez and Jose Urquidy, 8 o'clock Eastern on Fox Sports 1. Game 3, that series tied at 1 game apiece. The Atlanta Braves have walked off the Dodgers 2 straight games in the bottom of the ninth. They have a 2-0 series lead over the Dodgers. They have a travel day today. They'll go back to L.A. for 3 tomorrow afternoon, Wednesday night, and Thursday night. If the Braves don't sweep, it'll be Walker Buehler tomorrow night going for the Dodgers to probably save their season down 0-2 against Charlie Morton, who's been a nemesis for the Dodgers ever since his Houston Astros days. And he did pitch for Tampa Bay last year in the World Series against L.A. Walker Buehler, about $1.75 favorite, $1.73. 7.5 the total. Boston favored 110. 9 the total. That's an offensive series. John Parada, our guest on Friday, baseball writer, Baseball Hall of Fame voter, John Parada of SportsBettingDime.com. He said maybe the over to go in all 7 games of the Houston-Boston series because those bats are not cooling down. On one side, you got Altuve and Correa and Bregman, Yordan Alvarez. On the other side, you've got Kike Hernandez, Alex Verdugo, J.D. Martinez at a grand slam, Rafael Devers, always a danger in the box as well. And Xander Bogaerts, don't forget about Xander Bogaerts, one of the top shortstops in Major League Baseball, manning the grounds of Fenway for the Red Sox as well, too. So that's what's going on in baseball. All right, let's start off with the NFL. Let's go to Monday night. First of all, there's a line for Monday night. Buffalo at 4-1. Their only loss coming to the Steelers on the opening weekend. 6.5-point favorite, ironically, that week as well, too. But Pittsburgh comes back and wins that day. That's the only loss Buffalo's had. Defensively, they've dominated. Special teams, they've dominated. I know that intimately. They're my team defense in fantasy football, so I have them going tonight. But they've got a big challenge tonight going up against Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, and the offensive-laden Tennessee Titans, who are 3-2, leading the AFC South right now. As I look at the standings, they are 3-2. Indianapolis 2-4, Houston 1-5. Jacksonville gets their first win in London yesterday. They're 1-5 as well, too. Buffalo 4-1. They're 2 games ahead of the New England Patriots, who lost yesterday in overtime. Buffalo at 4-1. They've scored 172 points. They've only given up 64 points in 5 games. That's barely 13 a game that they're giving up. Their plus 108 point differential is the best in the NFL. As I look down, the best in the NFL, there's not even close. The second best is the Arizona Cardinals, and we'll get to them in a second. They're plus 85. The Arizona Cardinals still undefeated at 6-0 after their win over Cleveland. But Buffalo tonight, Josh Allen has been the man. Josh Allen has done everything that the Buffalo Bills have asked him to do and more. They're a 6.5-point favorite on the road, 53.5. We know Tennessee can score, but this Bills defense is really good. I don't know which way to lean as far as the total goes, but I'm still leaning toward Buffalo until they end up losing a game for me. But right now, they have been on fire. They are scoring at a clip, as I said, 172 points in 5 games. So that's about 35, if my math's right, almost 35 points a game. They're scoring, and they're only allowing 13 a game, including a shutout of the Houston Texans, a blowout of the Washington Football Club 2 weeks ago. They're on a streak. They've won 4 in a row since that week 1 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So an interesting Monday night game. Let me know what you think on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. What do you think about the Buffalo Bills? I'm calling them the best team in the NFL. I know that Arizona's still undefeated, but I still think Buffalo is the best team in the NFL. They're certainly the best team in the AFC, and I was going to put the Chargers right up there, and they're still right up there as number 2. But as I look through the AFC standings right now, Baltimore is making a case at 5-1. They handled the Chargers easily yesterday, 34-6 over the Chargers in Baltimore. They're 5-1, so they're creeping up right there into the top 3 of the AFC as far as the overall NFL goes. Dallas is 5-1. Green Bay is 5-1. Tampa Bay is 5-1. The Rams are 5-1, and they're all looking up a game back of the Arizona Cardinals, who are 6-0. Let's get to the games itself. Yesterday in London, yesterday morning, I was asleep, actually traveling back yesterday, so I was asleep. I forgot the game started at 9:30 on the East Coast. Otherwise, I would have taken Jacksonville because they are getting better every week. In fact, Russell Wilson is my quarterback in fantasy football, so I had to get another quarterback because Zach Wilson had the week off. So I let Zach Wilson go, and I picked up Trevor Lawrence, surprising that he was there, and he had a pretty good game. And they won yesterday. They ended up beating the who did they play? They ended up beating the Miami Dolphins 23-20 on a last-second field goal by Jacksonville to give Urban Meyer his first win. 23-20, the final score over Miami in a game played in London. Tagovailoa came back and started, threw for 350 yards. Miami has their quarterback back, but they couldn't beat Jacksonville on the road. Green Bay still dominant over Chicago. Did you see Aaron Rodgers yesterday after he ran in the touchdown? I own you. I own you. I own you. Yes, you do, Aaron. I totally agree with that. You've been the bane of this Bears fan's existence for the last 10 to 12 years. 24-14, Green Bay beats Chicago. They are 5-1. The Bears are 3-3. They're 2 games back, and they're 1 game back in the tiebreaker column as far as the NFC North goes, because the Minnesota Vikings got a victory over Carolina yesterday in overtime, 34-28. They get a touchdown in overtime to beat Carolina, cover the 2.5 on the road that they were favored by. The Minnesota Vikings, 34-28. The hapless Detroit Lions, they are winless. They are 0-6. They seem to be getting better every week. Cincinnati Bengals are really good, folks. They are 4-2 now. Cincinnati 4-2, 1 game back of Baltimore. They whooped up on Detroit. I think it was 34-11. 34-11, Cincinnati over Detroit yesterday. The Colts are 2-4. They're in second place in the AFC South. They blast the Texans 31-3. Carson Wentz playing better. Jonathan Taylor seems to be healthy from the injury he got back. He had a few weeks back. They played well. The Rams, we said, are 5-1. They beat the Giants 38-11. The Chiefs climb back to 500. They win 31-13 over Washington. The football team now at 2-4. I believe 2-4 as we look at it. Yeah, 2-4. They're 3 back of the Cowboys in that division. The Cowboys might clinch by Thanksgiving the way they're going right now. That was a tough one for the Cowboys. They get the win in overtime in the late game. We'll get to the late games in a second. The Vikings over the Panthers. The Ravens over the Chargers, 34-6. The Chargers were sleepwalking through the entire first half, 17-0 at the half. They get a late touchdown before the half comes through, make it 17-7, still in the game, but they couldn't stop Lamar Jackson. They couldn't stop Hollywood Brown. They couldn't stop the run game that the Baltimore Ravens possess. And right now, 5-1, a Baltimore-Buffalo matchup sounds awfully tasty. Don't know if they play at all during the year. Maybe our Make the Money and Run crowd can help me out with that from the schedule that they have. So those are some of the early games, Dolphins and Jaguars. Let's see what else we got. Vikings, Panthers, Chargers, Ravens. Nope, that's it. And then, of course, on Monday night, those of you that had Tampa Bay on Thursday night, laying 7. How about the Eagles going for a 2-point conversion? 28-20, the score when Philadelphia scored a touchdown in the fourth quarter. And then they go for 2 because they didn't want to go to overtime with Tom Brady. They did not want to go to overtime with Tom Brady. They go for a 2-point conversion. That way, if they got the ball back, they can go down for a game tying and an extra point winning score to beat Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay holds off. The over-under in that game, 52.5. It ended up at 50. Bad for me. I had the over 52.5. It was 21-7 at half, 14-7 at the end of one quarter. So you're looking pretty good for the over there, but it did not happen. 52.5. The Buccaneers get the win. They're 28-22 over Philadelphia. They are 5-1 over they're 5-1 in the NFC North. The Saints and the Falcons had the bye week. The 49ers also had a bye. The Jets had a bye. Those were the 4 teams that had a bye this week, as 14 games are being played in the NFL this weekend. So as I said, let me go through the scores one more time. Let me get to the afternoon scores here, the late games. We talked about the Arizona Cardinals. How about Kyler Murray? DeAndre Hopkins is a beast. DeAndre Hopkins is a beast. Kyler Murray playing well. 37-14. J.J. Watt may not have the sack numbers, but they brought him in. He definitely disrupted the Cleveland Browns offensive line. In fact, Baker Mayfield was sacked on a play by Watt, and he ended up getting hurt. He came back later in the game. But a 37-14 win by the Cardinals. Good play as an underdog, 3.5. I was wrong. Thought Cleveland would come out with that running game and kind of dismantle the Cardinals defensively. The Cardinals right now 6-0, and they are – who are they going to play next week? They have the Houston Texans next week, so look for them to go 7-0 next week. Boy, the Houston Texans, what's that line going to be? Buffalo is favored by 18.5 over the Texans a few weeks ago. What are the Cardinals going to be favored? At least 2 touchdowns or more as we get on. I want to thank everybody on Facebook and YouTube Live for watching us. Jen and Taylor watching us as well, too. Thanks to YouTube as well, too, as I see some viewers on there as well. Unfortunately, we don't have your names on there, but if you happen to see this, feel free to jump on the Facebook page and send us a comment if you want. So we appreciate all the views that we get on there. All right, the late games. Arizona over Cleveland, 37-14. The Raiders in their first game with a new head coach, John Gruden resigned last Monday. And you know what? I should have practiced pronouncing the coach's name. Rich. We'll call him Coach Rich right now. He's 1-0. He's a special teams coach. He's the interim coach. He should, if they play like that for him, like they did yesterday in Denver, and Denver's not a bad team. Raiders right now 4-2. They're trying to challenge with the Chargers. 4-2 is tied with the Chargers for first place in the AFC West. Denver at 3-3. Kansas City's win also ties them at 3-3. So the AFC West, very competitive division right now in the National Football League. The AFC West 4-2, 3-3. That's going to be a tough division. It's like the NFC West where everybody beats up on each other, although Arizona seems to be having their way right now in that division. The Cowboys in overtime beat the Patriots. The under in that game, those of you over-under bettors, totals bettors, the total was 51. The over-under was 51. It looked good, 24-20, and then all of a sudden Trayvon Diggs, your future NFL Rookie of the Year, another interception run back for a touchdown, another pick six for Trayvon Diggs, but then he got caught up on a touchdown pass to Jacoby Myers by Mac Jones that gave the Patriots a 3-point lead after a 2-point conversion. Cowboys come downfield. They end up tying the game with a field goal. Greg Zuerlein hits a field goal late in the game to tie the game at 29. And then in overtime, the Cowboys get a touchdown, 35-29, the final score. They cover the 3.5, another favorite that covered. The last 3 weeks, the favorites have been covering a lot more than they were the first 4 weeks. I'll give you the numbers at the end as we get to the end of the NFL segment here. So the Cowboys beat the Patriots in overtime, 35-29. Last night, the Pittsburgh Steelers had a 14-point lead. They were laying 5 points. That's Geno Smith on the other side for Seattle. Russell Wilson, my fantasy football quarterback, going to be gone until week 8 or week 9. You saw him practicing before the game. He was going through all his footwork before the game. NBC had their cameras out there on him. But Geno Smith led the Seahawks down from 14-0 at a +5. We're able to tie the game. Steelers get a field goal late. Seattle gets a field goal late. They're tied at 20 going into overtime. Rather than going in for the touchdown, the Steelers end up kicking a field goal. Do not get the -5 for Pittsburgh for me. Steelers do not cover the 5-point favorite. Seattle covers +5, but they lose the game 23-20 in overtime. It was a well-played game. The Steelers had a great first half. Defense dominated. Second half, Alex Collins went off from the running back position. DK Metcalf, he's a beast. You know how good he is. Tyler Lockett only had 2 catches. So the Steelers played pretty good defense, but you couldn't stop Lockett. Couldn't stop Alex Collins, the former Washington running back, was able to rush for over 100 yards. Seattle, however, 2-4 in last place in the NFC West. They're half a game back of the 49ers, who were off this last weekend. And they're 3 games back of the Rams, 4 back of the Arizona Cardinals. They're going to have an uphill climb to even have a chance at making the playoffs right now. The Pittsburgh Steelers, with that win, they are up to 3-3. They're a game back of Cincinnati in second place and 2 back of Baltimore. Very competitive AFC North, just like the AFC West. Baltimore 5-1, Cincinnati 4-2, Pittsburgh 3-3, and Cleveland 3-3 as well. All right. Like I said, the numbers that go into it, I'm going through the scores right now. I believe going into tonight with 4 teams off, the favorites were 8-5. So I do it by underdog to favorite. So underdogs were 5-8 this week through week 5. And there's going to be 14 games, not 16 games this week. So if I add it up correctly, let's see, 38 and 26 after week 4, and then 6-10 after week 5. So that's 44 and 36 coming into this week, 49 and 44 going into tonight's game. The underdogs versus the favorites. They either cover the point spread or they win the game outright. 49 and 44 going into tonight. Look for it to be 49 and 45 as the Buffalo Bills will maul the Tennessee Titans, laying the 6.5 at Tennessee. Buffalo, a top 5 team, a top 2 team, in my opinion, in the NFL right now. But right now, the favorites to start the year were 4-12. They were 16 and 30 after week 3. And now the favorites and the good teams are starting to come back. These point spreads are starting to normalize out a little bit, and now they're only 4 games above 500. 5 games above 500 are the underdogs with the Monday night game left tonight between Buffalo and Tennessee. All right, that's your NFL wrap. Let me give you a little heads up on the NBA. We've got 2 NBA games coming up this week. The NBA starts with 2 games this week. The Milwaukee Bucks, the world champion Bucks, will host the Nets. Brooklyn, a 1.5-point favorite, 237.5. Wow, these totals are already high to start. Don't know the status of Kyrie Irving. I'm going to try and find out by the time the 6 o'clock podcast minute comes up. The Lakers and Warriors will open up game 2 tomorrow night. The Lakers and their geriatric roster right now, but always led by LeBron James, Anthony Davis as well at 25 years old. He's the young kid of that group. And, of course, the Golden State Warriors, no Klay Thompson yet. 3.5-point underdog, 228 the total. A full slate on Wednesday with NBA games. We'll have that on the podcast minute as all the games don't start till 7 o'clock. 6 o'clock every day for the podcast minute and our selections that go there. In hockey, as the NBA opens tomorrow, we've already had a week of hockey. Pittsburgh, the Penguins lead the way. They've already had 5 points this year already to start. They're the only team with 5 points. 9 teams all off to good starts with 4 points so far. The only 2 Western teams are Edmonton and Minnesota that have 4 points each. In the East, Florida, Buffalo, Toronto, Ottawa, and Tampa, all in the Atlantic Conference, all have 4 points. And then Carolina and Columbus have 4 points in the Metropolitan Division of the Eastern Conference. So 7 teams in the East with 4 points, 2 in the West with Minnesota and Edmonton, both leaders of their divisions. Minnesota of the Central, Edmonton of the Pacific. Very good Edmonton team, by the way. And the Seattle Kraken have a win already in their expansion year. But right now, the Pittsburgh Penguins at 5 points, 2-0-1, 2 wins and an overtime loss. And that accounts for their 5 points as they've already played 3 games this year. Most everybody has played 2 games, Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh, the only 2. Chicago has played 3 games. Seattle and Vancouver have also played 3 games as well. So very early in the NHL. And, of course, the NBA starts as well tomorrow. We're here on Thursdays and Fridays as well as today with the Make the Money and Run podcast. You catch us every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. We're sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino, celebrating 40 years, Silicon Valley's longest-serving British pub and restaurant. BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. And don't forget to check out our podcast minute every day on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and podcast pages everywhere that we have, social media pages that we have. We have a group page for the Make the Money and Run podcast. We also have a podcast page as well too on Facebook for Make the Money and Run. And then of course you can catch us all on Twitter and Instagram as well too. All right, when we come back in 30 seconds, the wrap up of the college football weekend, a big weekend, including a major upset of a team that was number 2 in the country. They are not number 2. And we'll tell you who that is. You probably already know if you follow this show. But the NCAA football, all the wrap coming up with that. And then we'll close it out at the end. Vasi Vada Party with you on a Monday, October 16th, 2021, the Make the Money and Run podcast for a Monday afternoon. Back in 30 with the NCAA wrap-up. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast. Vasu Vatapalli here, your solo host, Charlie O on assignment. He'll be back with us on Thursday. We're here every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. We're sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Check them out at BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. All right, we've hit Major League Baseball. The LCSs are in full swing. Game 3 tonight between Houston and Boston. Boston a slight favorite, 9 the total with Eddie Rodriguez, Eduardo Rodriguez, and Jose Urquidy in Boston for 3, series tied at 1 game apiece. The Atlanta Braves have walked off the Dodgers in 2 straight games. They've got a day off today with a 2-0 lead back to L.A. Walker Buehler, $1.73 favorite, 7.5 the total, versus Charlie Morton of the Atlanta Braves, a must-win for the Dodgers tomorrow in Los Angeles. They go tomorrow afternoon, West Coast time, 2 o'clock on the West Coast, 5 o'clock on the East Coast, and then Game 4 of the Astros-Red Sox will go tomorrow night. So that's the baseball schedule. The NBA starts tomorrow with 2 games. Milwaukee Bucks, the world champion Bucks, will host the Brooklyn Nets. And in Game 2 of the doubleheader, the Warriors will visit Los Angeles to take on the Lakers. The Lakers an early 3.5-point favorite, 228 the total. In that game, 237.5 the total in the Brooklyn Nets Milwaukee Bucks game. And then the NFL, the Buffalo Bills and Tennessee Titans will go tonight. The Arizona Cardinals are 6-0. The Baltimore Ravens are 5-1. The Rams are 5-1. Lots of good things happening in the NFL. The Raiders got a win under the new head coach. The Steelers win on Sunday night over the Seahawks as well. The Chargers get throttled by the Ravens, who are 5-1, as we said. The Vikings over the Panthers. The Chiefs beat the Washington Football Club. Colts blast the Texans. Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers, give us a break. He's still dominating the Bears. They win again. They're 5-1. And then Jacksonville gets their first win under Urban Meyer with an overtime victory, with a last-second victory, I should say, field goal by the Jacksonville Jaguars to give Urban Meyer his first win as an NFL coach. They played that game in London. They beat Miami. Tagovailoa back for Miami, throws for 350 yards. All right, the NCAA. Let's get to it. Major upset in the NCAA. An 11-point favorite coming off their win versus Penn State. The Iowa Hawkeyes get beat by Purdue. Not only did they get beat by Purdue, they got throttled by Purdue. 23-7, the final score. Purdue's defense really, really good. Offense a little questionable coming in, but they played well enough to beat Iowa, who was at number 2 coming into this week. Purdue beats Iowa. That's a big upset, 23-7. These are the Big Ten. Minnesota also upset Nebraska in the Big Ten, but Iowa at number 2 loses to Purdue. That's a big loss for Iowa as they fall in the rankings. It's still Georgia at 1. Cincinnati moves up to 2. Oklahoma at 3. Alabama at 4. Ohio State at 5. Michigan 6. Penn State 7. Oklahoma State at 8. Michigan State at 9. Oregon at 10. Iowa falls all the way down to number 11. And then Ole Miss is at 12. Notre Dame 13. College of Charleston at 14. Kentucky at 15. After their game against Georgia, Wake Forest, Texas A&M, North Carolina State, Auburn and Baylor rank out the top 20. SMU, San Diego State, Pittsburgh, Texas San Antonio, and then Purdue at number 25 after their upset victory over Iowa moves into the top 25 for the first time this year. All right, let's go back over some of the games from this past weekend. Oregon at number 9 beats Cal at home. They did not cover the 11.5, 24-17. The final score. Oregon still with turnover problems. Cal took advantage of it. Chase Garbers, the senior quarterback, had some good moments in that game, but Cal just not strong enough to beat Oregon. They lose by 7, but they cover the 13.5 that Cal was an underdog by. San Jose State also covered their 10-point game at home. San Diego State in 2 overtimes beats my Spartans 19-13. They were 24 at the time. They moved up to 22. Did the Aztecs. So San Diego State over San Jose State in Mountain West action, 19-13 in 2 overtimes. Cincinnati rolls. I mean, Cincinnati is very good. They're number 2 in the country for a reason. They take out UCF 56-21, 3 touchdown favorite plus 0.5 point, 21.5 for Cincinnati. Michigan State, number 10 going into the game. They held off Indiana 20-15, a 4-point favorite over Indiana. They win by 5. They barely cover. They get the late field goal to help cover that point spread. 20-15. They move up 1 spot to number 9. Oklahoma State, very dangerous team. They go into Texas, and they were down big, but they come back with that defense. Spencer Sanders able to use his legs. The running game runs very hard for Oklahoma State. Their defense came up in the second half. They upset Texas. Texas gave up a lot of yards. Bijan Robinson had a good game from his running back spot. They were out to a little bit of a lead, but they could not come back. 32-24 Oklahoma State over Texas. A 3.5-point favorite was Texas. They lose the game outright. Oklahoma State covers, wins the game outright. Auburn beats Arkansas. Arkansas number 17 in the country. Arkansas 5-point favorite, loses to Auburn 38-23. Another upset as LSU beats Florida. Florida 13-point favorite. LSU 49-42 victory for Ed Orgeron, who has said that he and the university have come to terms and that they will separate their contract at the end of the year, so no more Coach O at LSU after 2021. We'll see where he ends up in 2022. He does have a lot of ties to USC, and I'm sure that name's already rolling around in USC trustees and the athletic director's head as far as Ed Orgeron maybe making a return trip to Southern California as well. Texas A&M beat Missouri 35-14. Oklahoma beat TCU. They covered that point spread. They were there. Where were they at? They were at 52-31. Oklahoma over TCU, 13.5-point spread. Utah beats Arizona State. Arizona State ranked at the time number 19, 35-21. I believe they're still ranked. I don't know if they've dropped out of the rankings. I did not see them. They are not in the top 25 after the loss to Utah, 35-21. The final score there, the Utah Utes get the victory, and they cover the 3-point spread. And Mississippi beats Tennessee. That over-under was 82, folks, 82. You know how hard it is to get to 82 in college football? I know that they're run and shoot, and Lane Kiffin has them going. They barely hold off Tennessee, who had been playing well, but 31-26, the final score. Matt Corral gets injured. He's up in the air for LSU this coming weekend, their All-American quarterback. But 31-26, Ole Miss over Tennessee. Some ACC games. North Carolina does not cover their point spread against Miami, but they do win. They do win 45-42. They beat Miami in that game. Pittsburgh over Virginia Tech. A lot of people were on Pittsburgh last week. A 5-point favorite at Virginia Tech. And sure enough, that turned out to be correct. 28-7 over Virginia Tech, and then North Carolina State 33-7. They're a very good team. Look for them in terms of future point spreads over Boston College. We talked about Iowa and the Big Ten getting upset. Minnesota upsets Nebraska as well. We get to the Pac-12. Washington State over Stanford, 34-31. Stanford had a lead in that game, but could not hold them. 34-31. Washington State over Stanford. Colorado 34-0 over Arizona. But UCLA, a 3-point underdog at Washington. They end up getting the win. Dorian Thompson had a good game for UCLA. They run the ball really well. Their defense can step up. Chip Kelly has something going on right there. But right now, they're just a couple of key plays away from being in the top 25. UCLA, a 3-point underdog, beats Washington. And then in the Southeast, the number one Georgia Bulldogs have proven they're number one. They did not cover the 21.5, and you know how they did not cover. And I know because I had Georgia laying 21.5, and I'm sure a lot of people did. Kentucky gets a touchdown with 3 seconds left in the game to make the score 30-13, the final score. Georgia number one. Kentucky's defense played well. They held Georgia's offense down. Look for Kentucky to make some noise in the SEC West. Remember, Alabama has a loss. Texas A&M beat Missouri 35-14. Alabama 49-9 over Mississippi State. They are about a 99.9% cover when coming off a loss, and they don't lose very often. But Mississippi State was going to be the recipient of a butt whooping, and Alabama gave them one for sure. And then we mentioned Ole Miss and Tennessee. South Carolina 21-20 over Vanderbilt. So very interesting happenings in college basketball this week, coming up this week. Top 25 games this week as we look ahead on Thursday. Coastal Carolina, number 14, will go on Wednesday. They'll have Appalachian State, Tulane, and SMU. SMU at number 21 will play Thursday. Cincinnati will get Navy. Oklahoma at number 3 will get Kansas, Northwestern, Michigan. Michigan's moved up to 6. Illinois, Penn State. Penn State at number 7, Wake Forest and Army. Wake Forest will visit Army. They are number 16 in the country. Purdue at number 25 after their upset over Iowa. They'll get Wisconsin this weekend. Oklahoma State will visit Iowa State. That'll be a good matchup. Iowa State a little disappointing right now. They've had 2 losses. One of them was to Iowa, but they've got 2 losses this year. And then a very big game in the Pac-12. Oregon and UCLA. Oregon 5-1, UCLA 5-2. UCLA, we just set off their victory over Washington on the road as an underdog. Oregon did not cover the 13.5 versus Cal. They are going to go to UCLA. The early line has UCLA at -2.5. So that'll be a tough one to figure out. And then the SEC game of the week, Ole Miss at number 12 will play LSU. That game will be at 3:30 Eastern. CBS will have it. Clemson and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh off their win. We said Clemson did not have a good game. They did not cover their game on Friday night against Syracuse. Alabama and Tennessee, generally a barn burner in years past. Alabama already a 24.5-point favorite versus Tennessee, who lost to Ole Miss. San Diego State will visit Air Force. Texas San Antonio will go against Louisiana Tech, Conference USA there. Ohio State, number 5, at Indiana. USC Notre Dame, the traditional rivals, will hook up in South Bend on Saturday night. And South Carolina will visit Texas A&M. Texas A&M, number 17. A&M already a 3-touchdown favorite over South Carolina. And then North Carolina State, off their victory over Boston College, will go to Miami. They're a 3-point favorite over Miami going into the weekend. All right, that's what we're looking at for college football. We'll wrap it up with some topics to talk about as we wrap up the hour here on the Make the Money and Run podcast for Monday, October 16th, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Check them out for your catering events. Check them out for your group events. Go in there for weekday specials. Of course, 20 TVs for NCAA football, NCAA basketball going to come up, NBA basketball going to come up. The NFL on the weekends, a great place to go. And, of course, Major League Baseball, both LCSs in full swing. Check out the Britannia Arms of Cupertino, celebrating 40 years as Silicon Valley's longest-serving British pub and restaurant in Silicon Valley. All right, we're back in 30 seconds to wrap it up. Vasi Vadaparty, your solo host here on the Make the Money and Run podcast for this Monday, October 16th, 2021. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast, the final segment here for this Monday, October 16th. Vasi Vadaparty, your humble solo host here. Charlie O on vacation. He'll be back with us on Thursday. We're here every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. You can get to us on Facebook Live, Twitter Live, and on YouTube Live as well. If you miss any live broadcasts, you can download and subscribe. We're also have our picks, our selections every day during the week by 6 o'clock Eastern on our Instagram and Twitter pages, as well as our Facebook page. Make the Money and Run Facebook page has a Facebook group page, as well as an individual Facebook page as well, too. You can email us, mtmarpodcast@gmail.com, and also check us out individually. Charlie O and I both have a Facebook and Instagram page as well. We said Britannia Arms has been a great sponsor for us. Check them out during the week. They've got weekday specials going on. NFL Sundays, 20 TVs in there. NCAA Saturdays, Major League Baseball playoffs going on. The NBA starts tomorrow with 2 games, a full slate on Wednesday, and the NHL is already a week in as well. Coming up tomorrow, 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock, a conversation with Vasi Vadaparty, my former baseball coach, Terry Hardkey. He's been a scout with the Houston Astros for a long time. He's not scouting anymore, but he's had some notable players that he's scouted and seen through. I want to get his take on what scouting is like, what scouting was like then as compared to what it is now and what scouts look for. They're still the mainstream blood of the heartbeat of the baseball industry, of the sports industry, because this is how you find players. And are there ways for the old school and new school to melt? An interesting conversation with my former coach, Terry Hardkey, tomorrow at 2 Eastern, 11 o'clock, right here on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter Live. Of course, as always, you can download and subscribe anywhere you get. All right, a recap of what we did today. The American League Championship Series will go tonight. Boston and Houston tied at 1. Rodriguez and Urquidy go tonight in Boston, 8 o'clock. Games 3, 4, and 5 will be in Boston. The series tied at 1, so they will have 3 games in Boston with Rodriguez and Urquidy. 110 is what Boston's favored by 9 the total. 9 the total tonight. Both games have gone over already, Friday and Saturday. They both have gone over. Houston got game 1. Boston, on behalf of 2 grand slam home runs, one by Martinez in the first inning, one by Rafael Devers in the second inning, get the 9-5 victory and even the series at 1 game apiece. Dodgers lose 3-2 on Saturday night on a walk-off. Eddie Rosario gets the game 2 walk-off, 5-4 the victory for the Braves over the Dodgers. Must win tomorrow. 3 games in LA potentially, definitely the first 2. Game 3 tomorrow afternoon, 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock on the West Coast, with Walker Buehler and Charlie Morton. The Dodgers are 173 as a favorite, and the total is 7.5. Daytime baseball, the ball flies a little bit. Atlanta bats are hot right now. Dodger bats have got to get going. Did you notice, by the way, we didn't get a chance to mention it, Justin Turner was not in the lineup. He struggled all postseason. They moved Chris Taylor to third base, put Gavin Lux in the outfield and center field, and Cody Bellinger played first base. So very interesting outlook. A lot of questions about Dave Roberts and his managerial decisions right now. Brian Snitker pushing all the right buttons for the Atlanta Braves. And I think Alex Cora and Dusty Baker basically just sitting back right now, hoping that somebody will pitch for either of their squads, because both teams' bats are red hot in that American League Championship Series. And it looks like pinball baseball right now, as we're watching a lot of runs being scored. Not that many runs scored in the National League Championship Series. Braves again lead 2-0 in the series, 2 walk-off hits in game 1 and 2. Game 3 tomorrow afternoon. Game 4 of the Astros-Red Sox series will go tomorrow night. And then game 5, they'll flip it. The Dodgers will go at night. Game 4 on Wednesday night for the National League Series. Game 5 for the Astros and the Red Sox will go. They'll flip it. The Astros-Red Sox will be in the afternoon. The Dodgers and Braves will go at night on Wednesday. And then a day off in the American League, and then game 5 potentially for the Dodgers and Braves. All right, we want to thank everybody on Facebook, Jen and Taylor, Frank, everybody that's watched us on YouTube, everybody that's watched us on Facebook Live and Twitter Live. We really appreciate it. We're going to download this episode. We'll have it up there on all the podcasting sites, Apple, Google, iHeart, Spotify, SoundCloud. Anywhere you get your podcast, just look for that logo and subscribe and download. And don't forget to pass it on to everybody else as well, too. If you're interested in sports, the angle of sports wagering, join us here every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays for the Make the Money and Run podcast. I'm Vasi Vadaparty. Charlie O on assignment. Mondays at 3, Thursdays at 12, Friday at 12:30, all Eastern times on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Don't forget, every day we'll have our selections and latest news by 6 o'clock Eastern on all our social media outlets. You can also email us at mtmarpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. You can get us anywhere you want, and also leave us a comment as well. And don't forget to, if you're in Silicon Valley, don't forget to check out the Britannia Arms of Cupertino, celebrating 40 years. They will cater to your office parties. They will set up your group events. They have weekday specials as well. The Major League Baseball playoffs going. Both LCSs are going right now during the week. On the weekends, NCAA football on Saturday, NFL football on Sunday. They've got 20 TVs in the establishment. It's a great place to go watch a game. Great place to have some of the most authentic British drink and food that you'll find in Silicon Valley. So next time you make it into Silicon Valley, you're in the San Jose, Cupertino area, check out the Britannia Arms of Cupertino, BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. All right. For Charlie O is on assignment, I'm Vasi Vadaparty. This has been the Make the Money and Run podcast. Don't forget, a conversation with Vasi Vadaparty tomorrow at 2 Eastern with my former coach, Terry Harkey. We're going to talk about baseball and scouting and how it's changed in the last 30 years to what it is now, and how sabermetrics and analytics are dealt with it. But for right now, this has been the Make the Money and Run podcast for Monday, October 16th, 2021. I'm Vasi Vadaparty. Have a very pleasant, good afternoon. We'll see you at 6 Eastern for the podcast minute on all the social media platforms. Have a great afternoon. Enjoy the games, and as always, good luck with your games. Take care, everybody.